I'm here.
Long time no see.
I know.
That was a pretty seamless transition, just a different link.
Yes. Yeah.
There's Faith. She's connecting.
Hello.
Hi.
Is she going away? I saw.
Is there a question? Was there a question? I don't know. Well, we're almost at 2 o'clock, so we'll start in just 1 second, probably a couple seconds. And that will end our day. Okay, it's 2 o'clock. So welcome everybody to the last session of the day. This is supporting socio-emotional learning with MyON. And I would love to welcome, we are so pleased to have T.I. Smith and Faith Smith here with us today. T.I. began her career in public education as a special education teacher across all grade levels, serving students in self-contained and general ed classrooms in El Paso, Texas for 16 years. She served as the instructional coach for special education for a high school campus, and finally as a district facilitator for special ed for high schools. She also served as the liaison between the district's dual language program and special education, collaborating with district curriculum personnel to ensure that success was attainable for all students, regardless of background or disability status. As an educator, T.I. used several Renaissance products, including AR, MyON, and Star Reading and Math, making Renaissance the next step in her journey to ensure that education opportunities extend to all students. And Faith, Miss Faith Smith, has brought over 20 years of experience in public education prior to joining Team Renaissance, having worked as a classroom teacher, school and district leader in Title I schools, has given Faith a 360-degree perspective of the public school landscape. Faith is excited to be a part of Team Renaissance because the Renaissance mission and commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion aligns with her personal values and home life. When she is not working, Faith loves spending time with her family, reading, traveling, and nerding out on all things education. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. You're too kind. Well, I'm excited to be here to talk to you about using MyON to support social emotional learning in your school system. So let's just jump right in here. The presentation, I want to make sure I get the right screen here. So let's see. As we just mentioned, the mission of MyON is to accelerate learning for all children and adults of all ability levels and ethnic and social backgrounds worldwide. And I don't think anything in education has the capacity to accelerate learning for children of all ability levels, ethnicities, and social backgrounds like social and emotional learning does. Research has shown that a smart systemic social and emotional learning program propels all students forward. And the research has not just shown this, I've witnessed this personally. Social and emotional learning is one of the big passions in my life. And I've spent, over the past year and a half or so, I've spent time working with a lot of schools and districts on social and emotional learning because I think that's really that important. I worked as an English teacher in the high school classroom for 15 years. And I saw the difference that between a student who was able to manage themselves, who was motivated, who had a growth mindset, who was goal-oriented, who could work well with others, the difference between that student and the student who didn't have those skills, and how that translated to not just academic success, but life success. And so to me, my empirical experience with SEL bears out to that research that says that SEL is so important for our students. So I just wanted to ask before we get started, and you can drop this in the chats. We have 27 participants here, so hopefully I'll get a lot of participation here. So I just want to know, when I say social and emotional learning, what comes to mind? Just a couple words. What do you think of when I say social and emotional learning, or anybody says it? What do you think of? Just drop it in the chat. Mental health checkup. That's very interesting. A mental health check. Coping skills.
Yes. Faith is really going to talk about some of the ways, not necessarily just using the word coping, but how these skills kind of all interact within a framework. So very healthy environment. Environment is very, very indicative of how well students are, how balanced they are in their everyday life. So that environment.
Working with all children as though they are one. Yes, that diversity, that equity piece. Absolutely. So peace and love, calm and quiet. Safety, yes, it does have to do with safety. Increasing kids' social and emotional awareness helps increase safety all across the school.
You guys keep putting those in there.
Yes.
And we'll go back over them as Faith continues.
Wonderful. So before we start talking about how MyON and social and emotional learning, I thought it would be worthwhile to do a little bit of language calibration, because I saw mental health in there. And I do hear a lot social emotional learning being equated with mental health. And sometimes that leads people to believe that it has to do with emotional disorders or mental illness, and that social and emotional learning, the goal is to diagnose an emotional disorder, and that's not really, at least when we're working with social and emotional learning in the CASEL framework, that's kind of a misnomer. So many thought leaders call social emotional learning the hidden curriculum, and that sounds kind of nefarious, but really what they're trying to say is that social and emotional learning is woven into a lot of what we do in school, especially at the elementary level when it comes to self-management and that sort of thing. We spend a lot of time with our littles, talking to them about how should we act when we're in line? How should we act when we're playing with other people? So social and emotional learning is that process through which all young people and adults get the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that they need to manage themselves, but also to achieve their goals, to develop healthy identities, to manage and understand their emotions, and to build supportive relationships. So I wanted to bring out the CASEL framework. And the CASEL framework, if you haven't seen this before, you'll notice in the CASEL framework, we have kind of this bullseye that shows the different communities of support that help students develop socially and emotionally. And right here at the center, we have classrooms. This graphic also shows the 5 broad interrelated areas of social and emotional competencies associated with the CASEL framework, which is that evidence-based model that comes from the decades of research in CASEL. If you want to learn more about the CASEL framework, casel.org has fantastic resources. But I just want to point out these 5 CASEL competencies are kind of broad. And by kind of broad, I mean really broad. Social awareness encompasses a lot of different skills that students need to be successful in life. And the same goes with self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. So whenever I have a conversation about the CASEL framework with teachers, I like to dive down to the sub-skill level, because these are the skills that teachers teach in their classrooms: how to manage emotions, how to set goals under self-management, being curious and open-minded, anticipating and evaluating the consequences for your actions. Can you see how these are much more narrow skills that are very teachable? How to communicate effectively, how to stand up for the rights of others. Social awareness, taking the perspective of others, empathizing and showing compassion. You know, I was just reading a news article today about a teacher that had her students TikTok video her and take videos of her and put it out on TikTok. And I just saw that and it just made me sad because I thought, is that empathy? Is that showing compassion? Are these students that are they showing compassion for their teacher, right? So bringing in those social and emotional skills helps stop things like that from happening. And then self-awareness, that growth mindset we're all talking about. So these are the skills that when I dive into MyON, I want to be looking for the unique teachable skills that are aligned with the CASTLE framework. There are 3 ways to support social and emotional learning in your classroom. Let me see if okay, 3 ways to support social and emotional learning in the classroom. And the first way is environmental. And these are the processes that you put into place in your classroom that support every learner. Environmental SEL would include inclusion, amplifying student voice and choice, helping students learn how to work cooperatively in teams, showing respect for others, and honoring and celebrating diversity. These are all environmental ways that teachers can support SEL. CASTLE has a fantastic paper on environmental SEL called the Signature Practices. It can be found absolutely free on the CASTLE website. I can't say enough good things about what the Signature Practices did for me, both as a teacher and also as a teacher leader, for helping teachers shift their mindset about the practices they want to put in place to be more mindful of voice, choice, and inclusion. The second way we can support SEL in the classroom is through explicit teaching. So if you asked a cartoon producer, what does a teacher look like? They'd show them standing at the front of the class teaching skills. That's what the explicit teaching is. You are bringing in stress management skills. You are bringing in emotional regulation skills, and you are teaching them to students. This is how you do it, A, B, C. But SEL can also work its way into our classroom through embedded SEL. And I brought in the image of the neuron to show that, because really what you're doing with embedded SEL is you're taking SEL and you're connecting it to the curriculum. I've observed some teachers using embedded SEL in such smart ways, such as I watched a math class, and there was a teacher that started her every math class with her social and emotional learning targets as well. So when we work through these math problems, we're going to be working in teams. How do we work with teams? Okay, I'm putting that up on the board. This is how you're going to act. She's teaching math, but she's reinforcing SEL through math, and that's embedded SEL. And MyON has tools that you can use to teach SEL both explicitly and in an embedded fashion. So that's where we're going to go next. And really this session is more of a demonstration of how you can use MyON to find those SEL resources that you need to support your students in the classroom. I always forget that I got fancy with that one. So I'm actually going to start to talk a little bit about MyON. And our MyON library is built on the core value that giving students more access to books that will engage them, that will expand their background knowledge, that will help them become better readers is at the heart of equity. Literacy is one of those keystone skills that helps people be successful in their lives. So by expanding access through the MyON digital library, we're increasing equity for all students. So that goes back to that CASTLE framework. We empower students with many different tools in MyON, and I'm just actually going to just dive in and show you what those look like. But these are our core values. Fast facts on our collection, and this first one is very important. Unlimited students can read at the same title simultaneously. So when we dive into MyON and I show you books on SEL, just know you can assign that book to your entire class. They can all read the same book on being a good citizen, being fair, stress management. There's no check-in, there's no check-out. You're not losing books when you hand them out to students. And if students annotate your book, you don't end up with marks in your book until the end of time or until you throw it away. There is a collection of over 15,000 digital titles, and we're always updating our collection. And 70% of those titles are nonfiction. So those nonfiction titles that address social and emotional learning and how students can gain those skills are very valuable in this space. The reading levels go from pre-K to grade 12. So there are books for littles about how to wait in line, and books for older students about the specific stresses that high school students face. 10% of our titles are bilingual and Spanish titles, and all of our texts are authentic. There are ISBN numbers for all of these books, and they come from famous publishers. Our core collection has a great diversity and representation across all cultures. We focus on that as much as we can in MyON. So if you are working through lessons on diversity or exposing students to different cultures, we have tools for that. And I'll show you what some of them look like when we head into MyON. And we do offer optional Spanish and Mandarin interfaces. So that's our commitment to equity, to help as many students as we can access these books. In our core collection, we have many titles that address the CASEL competencies. You can see that we have over 350 correlated titles for self-awareness, and our titles are cataloged by competency, so it makes it very easy for teachers to find those books that address those social emotional learning skills that they're discussing in class. We do have add-on publishers for both the elementary and the secondary level that offer books that are geared towards social and emotional learning. So just know that is out there as well to enrich the social emotional learning library of your school. So let's dive into MyON now. And before we do that, I'd just like to see if there's anybody that has any questions. I saw that there's a little bit of feedback there.
Yes, Faith. Someone's inquiring about the level of Spanish books. And yes, you're right. It would be absolutely great if we could get it up to at least 30%. However, that is just your core collection. There are other, you can add on publishers. Remember, we're buying these from publisher. So you have your free or the bundle that comes with MyON, and then you can add on others. And so there's some more Spanish titles that you can definitely add.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is jump into MyON, and I'm going to show you how you can use MyON to support social and emotional learning at your school. So I'm going to just head into my MyON account. Make sure I'm in the right place. I hope I am. Okay, so you can see the MyON library is organized almost like Netflix, where book recommendations are laid out for students. It's important to know that MyON offers books to students that are within their zone of proximal development. So students aren't going to see books shared with them that would be too difficult for them to read. And MyON knows the student's zone of proximal development, either through a STAR reading assessment data that is pulled in to MyON, or MyON also has a brief reading assessment that can gauge a student's zone of proximal development. So if you want to assign students books relating to social and emotional learning, you can know that the student can search for social and emotional learning and find books for specific CASEL competencies within their zone of proximal development. Okay, so remember I mentioned using MyON for those cultural studies. Here are books that have been picked out for students for Black History Month. That's just one example. But what I wanted to show you first is filtering. So I'm going to leave the recommended library tray page, and I'm going to head on over to browse. Okay, and you'll see our books are arranged by topic. I can also filter books by ATOS level, by fiction or nonfiction. And I want to head into social and emotional learning, and I'm going to be looking for a book to explicitly teach specific skills. So what I want to do is start with nonfiction, And I'm going to go right into social and emotional learning. You can see I have 565 books to choose from, which is way too many for me. I want to filter down by my CASTLE framework as well. And I'm just in my imaginary elementary school this month, we're talking about relationship building. And specifically this month, I want to focus on being a good citizen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head into relationship skills. And MyON is going to pull up all the nonfiction books that focus on relationship skills. And now I can search books and find out which books are going to meet my needs. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I see here's one called Being a Good Citizen. It's for grades pre-K through 1, and I have a first grade class, and my audio is 4 minutes and 51 seconds, so my students can definitely read it within class period. I'm going to scroll down a little bit further and see what else I can get. Okay, I like this one better. I'm a Good Citizen, because it's for pre-K through 2, and I'm teaching first grade, and I have some learners that might their zone of proximal development might be beyond the first grade. So I'm going to make the decision to grab this book, I Am a Good Citizen. I can find book information right here on the book. It does have audio. The audio time is 2 minutes. You can get more information about it. So let's just open it, preview it real quick. You guys probably can't hear that.
No, I was going to tell you, sound, fade.
I'm telling you, like, I'm batting 1,000 with this.
You would think by now I would say, hey, Faith, get your sound.
No, it's not on UTI. You're too good to me. Okay, so
I Am a Good Citizen by Melissa Higgins.
So most of the books for our younger grades have that audio read aloud, and our audio read alouds are actually done by paid actors. So you don't have that AI flat intonation, which helps build engagement with the students as they read. So there is the option to read aloud. Now, teachers also have the option to turn off read aloud if they don't want students to have it. But I have a first grade class. I would love my kids to have a read aloud so that they can have someone reading to them.
I follow laws and rules.
Words light up.
I respect my country and my community. I'm a good citizen. I don't bully.
Building those literacy skills and that read aloud, allowing the students to just focus on comprehending what this book is saying about being a good citizen, as opposed to struggling with decoding and that sort of thing. So I like this book. So what I want to do with it is I want to add it to a project. So I'm going to show you how to do just that. So I'm going to find my book, I'm a Good Citizen. And now instead of previewing it, I'm going to go right over here to the share button. And I'm going to add it to a project. And I'm going to create a new project for this one. And I'm going to call this Project Citizenship. And when I click the button, Citizenship, or when I click this button, Add to Project, it's going to automatically add this book on citizenship to my project. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to my classroom, and I'm going to open up projects. And I'm going to go over to my inactive projects, and I'm going to find citizenship. And right now, all I have is a book, okay? If I really want my students to dig into the social emotional learning aspect of this book, I'm going to want to add some more reflection in there and have the students really working with the concepts that they find in the book relating to social and emotional learning. So I think what I'm going to want them to do is mark up this book, okay? So I have a little description area here that's not shown to students, and I'm going to add, this is Mrs. Smith's first grade citizenship ship project. And then I want to share it. Okay, because now what I can do if I share this project is I can share what I've created for social and emotional learning for my students in my class across the grade, across the school. Any other teacher who's using MyON can find my first grade citizenship project and they can tweak it however they like. So I'm going to be a caring individual and I'm going to share. I'm going to tag this with relationship skills, which is my connection to the CASTLE framework, and with citizenship. That way, if anybody else is just looking specifically for those things, they'll find it. I'm making this for grade level first grade, but second graders could use it as well as kindergarten. I can have an optional due date, and that's just for the students, so that they'll get a reminder that they have to do something. Okay, so now I'm gonna head down in and look at the different tasks that I can assign in this project. And I can assign a graphic organizer if I'd like, having the students break down the text. But while these graphic organizers are great for literacy, I really want the students to focus on the social and emotional learning lesson in the book, the lessons about citizenship. So instead of having a graphic organizer, what I want to do is create an all-purpose task. And this all-purpose task is going to tell the students what they're going to do with the book that they read. So I'm going to call this citizenship book task. Very generic. I know I'm not being very creative right now. It's late on a Saturday. And then my task objective is going to be read, I am a good citizen, and highlight highlight all the ways students can be good citizens. So I'm having them find those key parts of the text. And it is done. I don't want this anymore. I just showed this to you. I don't want my all-purpose task to come after my reading task, and I'll explain to you why in just a minute. So I'm just going to pop this up here. And then, you know, I'm going to add a writing task too, because I want my students to reflect and personalize what they've learned in this book to really kind of make that text to self connection, to drag out an old term from way back when. So we're going to call this citizenship reflection. And what I want my students to do is think of 5 things they can do today to be better citizens. So this is kind of a really nice activity for them to focus, to make them more cognizant of how they're interacting with others in their school day. And it's also by giving it a short, this is what I want you to do today, gives them kind of a short time frame so that they can come back tomorrow and talk to me about the things that they did to be good citizens today. So what are 5 things you can do to be a good citizen today? I can set a word goal if I want. I have first graders, so I'm not going to set my word goal very high. I can set a time goal, and I can also allow students to peer review each other's work or add a checklist so students know if they're doing what they need to do. So now I have an all-purpose task, a reading task, and a writing task. What I'm going to do is assign, I'm going to save this project, and then I want to assign it to one of my students and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to select assign, go to rosters and groups, and I already have a roster in here. For schools that are using or teachers that are using the Renaissance Growth Platform, those rosters will already be pulled in, but adding students to the roster is very, very easy. So I'm going to assign this to my daughter, Brooke. And now I'm going to jump out and show you what it looks like from Brooke's end. I'm going to log out. And I'm going to be Cookie. Okay, so right here, I'm at Brooke's dashboard. You can see there's all sort of graphics to show the students, you know, how they're progressing on their literacy goals. But what I want to do here is roll down to projects and open up citizenship. Okay, so I remember I told you I put that citizenship book task first, and I was going to explain to you why I did that. Okay, so I'm dealing with first graders, and really even with high schoolers, the more complicated the directions you have, the more this is a good idea. So this citizenship book task is just directions. Students mark complete when they read directions. At this point, I like to tell my students, the directions are first. I want you to read directions. Don't mark the task complete unless you understand the directions. So this is that good check to make sure that the kids know what they're doing. And whether I was always the kind of teacher that said, just ask me, or even if you're an ask 3, then ask me teacher, you can say, you know, if you don't understand the directions before you mark complete, ask 3, then ask me. So it gives that check on directions built in. So I'm going to mark complete. So we're going to highlight all the ways students can be good citizens. So I'm going to open up the citizenship book. And I haven't put any settings on this book. If you would like, if you don't want your students hearing the book being read aloud because they don't have headphones, which is fairly common, you can turn off the audio. Okay. So I'm going to head in, and I know my task is to highlight all the ways to be a good citizen. Oh, I've already looked at this book. Wait a minute. I'm just going to go to the next page here. Laws keep me safe. Kids who bully don't obey laws. Let's head over here. Here we go. Here's some ways that I can be a good citizen. I can follow the school rules. So I'm going to grab my highlighter. You see, I'm pretending to be Brooke now. I open up my tools. I can grab my highlighter and I can indicate. I can follow my school rules. So I've completed one page in this task. I'm going to exit now. Once Brooke is finished reading the book, she'll be able to do her citizenship reflection. She can start writing 5 things I can do to be a good citizen today. And she can just type in her answer. I am going to follow the school rules.
Faith, can you see where the dictionary piece is? So remember, when kids are writing, if they don't, that's a really, really nice, so that way they can write fluidly and also check for meanings and things like that. I really like that part.
And you know, that cuts down on frustration as well, right? The student, everything's there in one place for them. So if they want to use a word, they don't know exactly what, you know, what the word means, they can look that word up. Thank you for pointing that out. That's fantastic. So I'm going to save. Now my writing won't be turned in until I actually want to turn in my writing, but I guess I can turn in my writing, see, so that we can make sure we can see it. All right, writing finished. Okay, so now I'm going to.
The other question I have, when you went back and her reading was only partially, why is that?
Because, and I'll show you that I'll show you this right now. Okay, I'm going back to my projects and I'm going to, let's see, citizenship, and I'm going to click my eye here. And I can see Brooke Smith has turned some things in, but look at this. Do you see it says Brooke Smith and there's a yellow indicator here? That tells me Brooke isn't done with the book. MyON knows if Brooke's only read 3 pages, and it's not going to give Brooke credit for reading the whole book if she just read 3 pages, annotated, and then turned it in. So it doesn't work like that. The student actually has to read until the end of the book. I can also see Brooke's annotations. So I'm just going to click right here. I'm a good citizen. And I can see what Brooke has decided to annotate. Also, as a teacher, I can use these sticky notes to give Brooke feedback. Following rules is a great way to be a good citizen. Are there any rules that are hard to follow. Don't forget to finish the book. Okay. And that's going to add that sticky note to Brooke's copy as well. So she can get my immediate feedback and make corrections.
To you the same way? Can she respond to your question the same way?
Absolutely, absolutely she can. The teachers that I work with though, when I was using it as well, I always recommended that if you're going to have a two-way communication in these sticky notes, which is entirely possible, change the font. So you just hit this little color palette and I'll change my font to blue. Okay, and now I'm going to type in the hardest. Oh, wait, I didn't change my font. I'm sorry, I changed the color of my sticky note. I need to change my font. Let's see. Okay.
So that's how you're going to delineate my conversation as a teacher from her conversation as a student.
Yes, I'll just put a different colored sticky note down. I don't want to spend time searching through all of the tools, sorry. So then Brooke can respond in a different color. Mrs. Smith, I think standing still in line is the hardest rule to follow. Okay, so yeah, so there can be two-way communication, and the next time I open up Brooke's book, I will see her response to me. So that is a nifty way to communicate. Okay. I can see her reflection as well that she turned in. Select a student. And here's her reflection. I'm going to follow the rules. I asked for 5. Let's see. I wouldn't speak with the first grader this way. I just to cut down the length. So that's one way that you can use MyON to do that explicit SEL teaching by finding those SEL books, assigning them out, and assigning little projects that ask students to dig into the aspects of SEL in the book. I also wanted to show you in MyON News. You can use that as well for SEL. So I'm in MyON News. MyON News publishes 5 articles a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. All of our articles are available in 3 separate Lexile levels. So when you assign an article to a student, they will get that just right reading level based on the data that MyON has. And I'm going to search up stress. And let's see what I can find. Here we go. So we have an article about how to handle stress. I can add an article to a project easily. When I was doing that first project, there's a little button there for add news. I can add a news article, or I can add an article to an existing project this way as well, or create a new project. So I can create a project called stress, save, and it's going to put that article right in the project. When the students open that article, they will automatically get an article of the correct Lexile level. Students can switch the language on the articles.
¿Cómo manejar el estrés?
And they can
how to handle stress.
Hear the article read to them. Okay, there's also a lot of nice, cute little features in here. Just extra little videos. Sometimes they're activities, sometimes they're more background knowledge. It just all depends on the article. For the library media specialists here, we have citations in here to show it's important to cite your sources. So these MyON News articles are a really nice way to incorporate more nonfiction and those shorter news articles into social and emotional learning. All of our MyON News articles are vetted by psychologists. So you know that they're appropriate and that's also really nice, because that's very important for teachers to know, hey, when this article comes through, it's not going to be anything that's going to upset the students. It's not going to be anything, there's not going to be anything untoward published in there in terms of how students should react to stress or how students should interrelate with other people. So using MyON News is a really nice, easy way to have a short activity on social and emotional learning that you can do in 20 or 30 minutes, or to enrich a project on social and emotional learning. So another thing I wanted to demonstrate, does anybody have a question so far? I've kind of been rolling through this quickly, and I know people have been just throwing them out there in chat.
If anyone wants to come off.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to comment.
Yes.
Hi, how's everyone doing today on Saturday? Glad to be here. It's going, it's all.
Yeah.
Keep that way to go. I like the way you're presenting with actual current events. Right here with the MyON News. And it's noted on the date, you have Saturday, February 1st. So it's actually the current news that you will keep on changing and continue being informed as the time passes by. So that's great. I'm enjoying
That's the thing with MyON News, is it's like your current events. It's to make sure that students understand what's going on in the world around them without traumatizing them, because they are vetted by child psychologists. But we wanted our kids to know what's going on. And there's a lot of different ways. So you'll see sports, you'll see animals, you'll see world news, and things that are happening in the United States. And you can go back in time and get some of those things too. That does help with social emotional, because sometimes it's the things that are going on in the world that are devastating, or what's traumatizing our students. So she's right. MyON News is a great way to do that.
Yeah. And in MyON News and these short articles, there are opportunities to weave in reflection on social and emotional strengths, right? Without bringing out a whole stress article, right? So maybe instead you're talking about works of art in your pocket, and you want to talk about, how they decide who's going to be on a quarter, what type of people should be represented on a quarter, what should be the aspects of a person that make them stand out to us enough to want to put them on a quarter. And then you can dive into, that the empathy, the understanding others, the relationship building. So you can always weave social emotional learning in, and that would be more of that embedded. So I wanted to show you also in projects, and I think this is really cool. I showed you that when I build a project for being a good citizen for my first grade class, I can share that project across my grade level. So we're all kind of doing the same thing, making it equitable. But if I go to this project library, I can actually search projects that are already made. So I'm going to search social emotional learning and see what projects I find. And you can see we have projects on social emotional learning. I wanted to show you this one. Let's go for grade 6 and see what's in here. So by clicking on the tile, I can see, okay, here's a video on mindset. Here's an article that they have to read, that students have to read and consider the lessons that the student learned. I think this is about a disabled girl who becomes a model, talking about mindset. And then I wanted to point out, do you see the reading selections on this one? Okay. That's why it's so important to have so many titles for social and emotional learning in MyON, because when you have a good amount of titles, you can build a long list of primary resources students can use for their social and emotional learning work. So this project, look at it, has so many choices for students. So students can say, okay, I'm learning about growth mindset, but you know what? I really like nonfiction. So maybe I want to find out more about blizzards and A Tale of Snowbound Survival. Or maybe I want heavyweight takedown about boxing. Maybe I want, so this can tap into students' interests, and it'll give them choice when it comes to how they want to read about growth mindset. The information is also there about the length of the book, the time of the book, what is the ATOS level, so you can put your book difficulty levels in a spread so that students can reach those higher levels or find books that are more appropriate for their reading ability. There's a graphic organizer, and then there's a writing activity. So this is a really nice, well-rounded project. And if I like this project, I can copy to my projects. Okay, and this is nice for two reasons. First of all, it's nice because when you copy to your projects, you can take things out of the project. Like, let's say you as an educator know one of the books in here and think, I don't want my student reading that book. You need to have the ability to take that book out of that project, right? Because it's up to you to make the decision about what your students are exposed to. Maybe you don't like some of the activities or you want to add another activity. When you copy to my projects, that puts that project in your personal project library and allows you to edit it. Another thing that's important is when you copy to my projects, you're not editing a project that's out here in the library that somebody else has already made, because I already made my citizenship project. So I don't want Mrs. Smith to come along and say, oh, I like this. I'm going to edit it and edit my project that I sent out to my students. So I'm sure, I don't know if this is going to happen to any of you with sharing PowerPoint presentations, Word documents, somebody comes along and changes your work. You don't want that to happen. So I'm going to copy to my projects. And here it is now. So I can tag it. I can add the due date. I can move things around. I can edit my reading task. I can tweak the project to fit the needs of my classroom and how much I want to emphasize social and emotional learning explicitly when I'm teaching versus embedded. What is when social and emotional learning objectives are secondary to what is being taught. Okay. And then the final piece that I wanted to show you, because we're kind of starting to land the plane, is I've been talking a lot about explicit SEL, right? Those books that explicitly teach, this is how you manage stress. This is what emotion feels like in your body. This is how you build a relationship with your brother or your sister or your friend. But in terms of embedded SEL, you can find books in the library that tangentially teach social and emotional skills that are terrific for reinforcing the social and emotional skills that you're already teaching in class, but they don't explicitly teach social and emotional skills. And for those of us that have taught social and emotional learning, you know that sometimes the best way to teach a student how to behave in a certain situation is to get a scenario, right? Rather than pointing out and saying, Billy does this or Jimmy does this, if you can get a scenario, kids can place themselves in the scenario, then they can practice their social and emotional learning skills in a non-threatening way. So you can find resources like that as well. So I'm going to head into browse into social and emotional learning, right? And now I'm going to look.
Faith, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you?
Of course.
There's a question. The question is from Claudia. Can I make a set of books to assign to my bilingual kinder students?
You absolutely can. A lot of teachers like to use MyON this way. I think of it as like a virtual bookshelf. You know, you get that shelf of books that you put out, kids, check this out. And they come and they look at it and sometimes they grab a book, sometimes they don't, but it's just a way of blessing a specific set of books. You can absolutely do that. So I told you we were talking about that embedded social and emotional learning piece and finding stories that give us scenarios that allow students to apply what they've known about social and emotional learning.
My mom, you know that Maru has the car there.
Okay.
Car. And then the mechanic told her that the car
let's
is
mute
so good.
Alita.
Like you,
Sorry, somebody is not muted. I'm trying to find you.
You need to wait until the
I think it's Alita's phone.
Start blowing.
Alita, let's see. Yes, got it. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, let's say I'm interested in the big catch. I'm going to go over here to share, and I'm going to add this to a book bundle, okay? So I'm going to add this one to my book bundle, and I'm going to call this book bundle I think it was, let's go with, relationship building. Relationships. Okay. And I want to add this one to relationships. I want to add this one to relationships. And I can just click through, find the books that I want, add them to the relationship, add them to my bundle. And now what I can do is go to favorites and bundles. I have my relationship bundle, and then I can share my bundle with my students. So I can share and save. Another thing you can do, and I'm going to go to view demo student. And I can see over here, libraries, bundles. Here it is, shared over here in book bundles. Another way you can do this is to create a project, add all those titles to the project, and then share the project with the students. So if I go back to my library, I'm going to exit this demo mode. If I go back to my library, I'm going to browse. I'm going to look for relationship skills. I'm going to look in fiction. And I can share, add it to a project, create a new project, relationship skills. Got it. Okay. And now it's added to my project. And then I can just assign the project. So I'm going back to my projects. My inactive. I'm going to edit. And here's my reading task here. And I can actually add more books by just going to manage books, relationship skills. Books. And I can add more. Boom, boom. I can check my ATOS level. This is for first grade. I don't want this one. Okay. Maybe we can have something about anger, fear, friendliness. Okay, so I can add books this way too. I can also search for books in a specific language. I'm going to clear this out. Books. Okay. So yeah, you can absolutely organize books in both of those ways. Okay. And when you go to search, because I didn't show you this yet. This is the last thing that I'll show you. When you go to search, okay, you can search by those CASEL sub-skills that I was telling you about, right? So we remember part of self-awareness was growth mindset. So we can search by mindset and see what we can find. Oh goodness. Let's try empathy. Okay. You can find books that address empathy. We can find books by language, English, Spanish, UK. Okay. Let's find our Spanish books. Fiction versus nonfiction by Lexile or ATOS. So that there's some robust filtering features in the search field that can allow you to find books by those CASEL subskills, which goes deeper than the larger competency buckets that you find in the social and emotional learning category topic here. Are there any other questions? Anything else you want to see?
If you guys have questions, since we're nearing the end, come off mute. We'd love to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Hello, how are you doing? I I've seen the acronym ATOS or ATOS came up a couple of times.
Yes.
First time I hear it, I might know it or have heard it in other forms, but what do you mean by ATOS?
Okay, so ATOS is just another way of measuring text difficulty level. The nice thing about ATOS is that it goes by grade level. Whereas, you know, if you've ever used Lexiles to find books that are right in the student zone of proximal development, you know how Lexiles have the number system, and Lexiles use like word length, sentence length, vocabulary to determine how complex a text is. ATOS is just like that, but it reports out by grade level. Ti, did you have anything to add to that?
No, it's a measure of readability. How within a grade level, how many complicated words, because what you don't want to do, and this is a big deal for MyON and for when we're promoting student choice in reading, is frustration. And the moment we give a book that's too difficult and that's outside of that frustration range, they no longer enjoy it, and then reading starts to turn into like a chore. And the purpose of MyON, while it is instruction and comprehension, the main purpose is to get our babies to read again and to enjoy it.
It doesn't matter what you're teaching, whether you're teaching SEL, literacy, or you're teaching for math or social studies, because you can find books that work in all disciplines. If they're not liking it, they're not reading it.
Great. Thank you.
So
appreciate
just to avoid that frustration level for our babies.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
But that's a great question, because sometimes you're like, I find an acronym, I have no idea what it means, and I just roll with it. And then I ask somebody later. So thank you. You probably weren't the only one. I appreciate that.
I'm sorry, you might hear a background noise. I'm taking notes here, and it says I got the word Lexile, and then with my nose it said, pardon me. Excuse me. And I write, what is ATOS, ATOS, and all in capitals, but that's the acronym. What is the ATOS? What is the A for?
I don't think that's an acronym in this case. I think it's the scientific, like it's the name of that particular
understood. Okay.
And actually, Renaissance has the explanation on our website to tell you exactly what they use, what criteria they use within those grade levels to attach an ATOS level.
I understand. Thank you. And I do have thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm glad
I just have a question. Sorry, Ti.
No, go ahead.
I have a question, or actually, one of our teachers had a question at middle school. I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know your first name. Come off mute and tell me your first name. Melinda, thank you. She was asking about the news, the nonfiction news aspect. Okay, so is it, I know Alding uses MyON through the grade levels. I'm not even sure. It varies per year what our offering is. And I think, as far as I know, we go up to high school, like all the way from elementary to high school as far as what we've purchased, but I'd have to verify that. But is the news article section included in the subscription? Is it a separate icon and clever? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
no,
is it embedded?
It's part, you can, when you buy it, you'll see both. So and as far as pricing, it really depends on, and we don't have an account manager on today, but if Melinda would leave her information, it can be bought separately and they can be bought together. And pricing, of course, is determined by size of the district, who we're using it for. There's a lot of things that can go into that. So I can't quote exactly, but you can get it independently.
Okay.
And it goes through 12th grade. There's the 3 reading levels, and you'll see how difficult it can become. But the good thing about it is, if I have a class that has multiple levels in there, especially a gen ed setting that I'm really trying to make sure that I'm doing a true co-teacher inclusion setting and everybody's learning the same thing, I can have that article on the screen where we're reading it together, and then that independent work where they're reading it at their level and answering questions, but everybody learned about that same topic. So it really does encourage equity and inclusion in that way.
I did put some information in the chat, TI.
Oh, God, we're here, Linda.
Yes, at one point in time, Aldine ISD did have a MyON News subscription for the middle schools, but this current year's subscription on MyON News is not included. But individual campuses can add that subscription, just like individual campuses can also add additional publishers onto their MyON subscription if they choose. So the district provides a lot of resources, but each individual campus can add to that out of campus level funds.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I know that when Aldine pivoted to virtual, when the pandemic started, MyON was a lifesaver, a lifesaver. And I remember using it I support newcomer teachers at middle and high school. So we used it extensively. I just don't remember the news side of it, the news article side of it. So it'd be interesting to inquire about that. I think it's a valuable resource.
That's what saved us too. No libraries, right? No Barnes and Noble, no public library, and no school library.
Right. So anyway, something to think about. I found it very interesting.
I'm so excited that you guys have MyON. Hopefully I showed you some new things that you're like, oh, I can do that, right? So you can search by the SEL, and so hopefully you can put that into practice right away. Oh.
Well, thank you both. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Armando.
I do apologize, con permiso. MyON News. It's on MyON News.
Armando, we're going to take you with us.
I'm get excited about this.
You're going to see our advertisement.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, I was my elementary schools. We used to get a kind of a semi-newspaper lookalike with 2 pages.
Yes.
And it used to be some name, the Explorer News, or some type, depending, varied on the school. But that was my weekly read aloud. That was my interest. That's the only thing that would get me to motivated to read. So in fact, that we could have this digital read of books of various genres, and it's interesting. So definitely, let's get this Newsweek. Absolutely. You all have a good weekend.
He's renamed it for you too. It's Newsweek now.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to close our day, and it was a fast day. Wow, a lot of great sessions today. So thank you, ladies, Faith and TI. Thank you so much, and thank all of you for participating today. You'll be getting, based on the attendance records, you'll be getting a survey. And so the survey should allow you to get a certificate. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the process. That's going to be up to my boss, Grace Delgado. So, but as long as you have taken attendance or you've registered for the form, you've put your information in the form, you'll get a survey. So thank you again. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.